Hello, welcome to Dundrell's podcast. I'm your host Justin. Today we're reviewing Superman, The Men of Tomorrow, written by Geoff Johns, with art by John Romita Jr. This came out. Well, the series came out in 2014. This graphic novel came out in 2015, and um, this is the first series that John Romita Jr. worked on right when he left right after he left Marvel to work for DC, and then people complained about his artwork at DC Comics, or people like fans did, and then he left to go back to Marvel after a couple years. I would have been like, if I was John, I would have either ignored the haters or said, screw it, go work for Image or something. Don't just crawl back to fucking Marvel, my guy. Whatever. Yeah, so this graphic novel costs 25 US, 29 Canadian. It collects Superman issues 32 for 39. This is around the New 52 era because, Superman has his New 52 costume, right? Yeah, which I love the. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of the New 52 Superman costume, but I kind of enjoyed it. Right, I kind of grown to enjoy it, and they also in this story they also was also this first time they introduced Superman's new power, the solar flare, where he releases a huge energy blast, but it leaves him without his powers for 24 hours, which I don't know if he still has that superpower, right? So this story is about basically in this hippie research center called Ulysses, which is based off the Greek story. You have these like ex military scientists who were sick of making weapons, right? Trying to make like worked at this research center where they're trying to make better technologies for tomorrow, and they're screwing around with alternate dimensions and stuff. So here you kind of have a modern kind of retelling of like Superman's origin story, but for a different character. You have these two scientists who think they're gonna be killed from radiation, right? So they decide, hey, our kid, we're gonna die, but our kid doesn't have to. So they send their kid through this dimensional portal, right? Right, uh, right before the lab gets destroyed, and this kid, who's an Earthling, gets new powers and basically becomes a Superman in this alternate dimension. So like yeah, Superman is going around fighting Titano, like monsters. You get this subplot where like Jimmy Olsen is broke, working for the Daily Planet. He's basically like Peter. They make him like Peter Parker, where like he's constantly has to get good photos to earn money at like the Daily Planet, kind of like what like Peter Parker did for the oh man, I can't. Uh, what was JJ's newspaper? I forget. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, and I was watching the Spider-Man cartoon the other day. Whatever, but unlike with Peter Parker, where he has this sweet scam that he's Spider-Man, so he can just like pose for the camera. Jimmy Olsen doesn't have that scam, so he's like broke. But like Perry mentions like how like his uh, Jimmy's parents were rich and they left him with a crap load of money. But like Jimmy's like, oh, my parents would make me pay back every cent, which happened to me the other day, where like I was broke and I had like a huge vet bill, and I'm like, hey, Mom and Dad, lend me some money, and I have to pay them like every cent. It's like, god damn, like, when I was broke and unemployed, like, you know, they would just give me the money, but now that I'm working again, oh, I got paid back. Yeah, so, like, what happens, like, this guy shows up called Cleric, who's, like, an alternate, a creature from an alternate dimension. Superman fights him, and who shows up? The baby that was sent into alternate dimension by his hippie parents. He comes back to Earth, with like powers similar to Superman, except for he can, like, you know, he's basically Superman if he had Bishop from X-Men's powers, where he can absorb energy and redirect it, and he can also, like, scan energy, like, you know, traces, right? So, yeah, basically what happens is Superman teams up with this, with Ulysses, also known as Neil, right? And realize, hey, they're very much alike, and Neil is from this utopia dimension, right, where he was, like, fostered, and he comes home on Earth, and you realize, hey, Earth kind of sucks, right? Earth kind of sucks compared to my old planet. So what happens is, which there's also this subplot where, like, Neil helps Superman fight this villain and track him down using his energy reading powers. Also, there's a subplot where, like, you know, it turns out that Neil's parents didn't actually die, and he gets reunited with them thanks to Superman, right? Apparently, Neil's dad jumped the gun when he decided to send his son into, like, you know, alternate dimension. Apparently, they were able to fix the radiation leak that was going to kill everybody. Right? Yeah, so, which, by the way, this is what the aliens look like, right? So, well, yeah, what ends up happening is that, you know, Neil, also there's this villain called the Machinist, who is implied is supposed to be some kind of hermaphrodite or something. It's very weird. I'm not sure what's going on, right? But yeah, what happens is that Neil, after realizing how crappy Earth is, calls his alien buddies from an alternate dimension to bring their ships, and they're like, hey, we're willing to bring over 6 million people from Earth to our utopian dimension, right? And obviously a lot of people are like, what the hell is this, right? Superman thinks, hey, there's something fishy going on with this ship, right? Because, you know, Neil didn't want his parents to come to his home dimension. Turns out utopias are bullshit. And that the aliens, Neil is not a Superman clone. Neil is basically Silver Surfer, where but unlike destroying planets for Galactus, Neil gets sent to planets where he goes to planets that are overpopulated, and offers, well, not overpopulated, but, like, that's his excuse, is that, oh, Earth's overpopulated. Who gives a crap if I take 6 million people? But, like, you know, he goes to crappy planets, offers people a trip to a utopian planet to start over, when really the utopian planets, like, only lives in luxury because, you know, they have to. Lives in luxury because they have this thing called the core that takes care of everything, right? And to power the core, they need bioenergy, which can be sentient beings can be converted into bioenergy, right? So yeah, it turns out that they're going to kill, like, you know, Neil is going to kill like 6 million people, right? And Superman gets captured and, like, tells him, "Hey, Neil, your parents are here." He's like, "No way." Turns out he's like, "Oh fuck, my parents are here." So he teams up with Superman to take down, to, you know, stop the aliens from converting people into energy, but ends up destroying his adoptive home world. Right, and somehow they were able to get back to their Earth's dimension somehow. How that happened, I don't know. And then Neil is like pissed. You motherfucker! You lied to me. You said we would save my world without having to sacrifice those 6 million people. You fucking asshole. So they have this huge fight, and they have this huge fight that Superman was losing. So he accidentally activated his solar flare power, which defeats Neil. Right? And then, like, you know, you have Batman shows up and explains everything, right? This is like the only one of the few Geoff Johns stories where Batman has a cameo and, like, you know, in some other superhero story, and Batman isn't an asshole. Because I've read a lot of Geoff Johns stories where he has Batman show up, like in Green Lantern, JSA, and Flash. He usually has Batman act like an asshole. Here, Batman is not an asshole, right? So that was cool. So yeah, you have this story. The last 2 issues is like Superman doxes himself to Jimmy Olsen, which for a while, like, Jimmy Olsen doesn't believe that, you know, Clark Kent is Superman because, you know, he has a new costume because his old one was destroyed. Right, and he doesn't have his powers. But, well, yeah, what happens is, like, you know, Superman for a day doesn't have his powers, and, like, he hangs out with Jimmy Olsen. And one thing happens where, like, a guy gets taken hostage at a botched bank robbery, and Superman shows up and is able to talk the guy into surrendering, right? And Superman put himself at risk because, you know, he lost his power, so he could have gone killed. And that's the end of the story. So yeah, you also have you have this huge cover gallery, right? Where you have artists like Eric Larson, John Romita Jr. This guy, there's Mike McCone. There's one by Ethan Van Sciver, and there's a Lego variant. There's the Ethan Van Sciver cover. Yeah. Also a Shane Davis cover. That's pretty cool. And whoever this is, Amanda Connor. So what did I think about this book? One, you guys should know, I got this for dirt cheap. So when I get a book for dirt cheap, I am more, like, forgiving. But overall, I liked this book. I thought the moral conundrums were good. You had this thing where, like, Superman couldn't just beat the shit out of this guy because Superman, you know, felt very sympathetic towards Neil. And then there was the fact that, oh shit, Neil's actually more powerful than Superman. So if it wasn't for the fact that Superman just happened, there is a Deus Ex Machina where, like, if Superman didn't have that new superpower that showed up out of nowhere, he would have been screwed and probably would have been, like, you know, killed by Neil. But other than that, I enjoyed this book, right? And though, like, some people might get annoyed with the, you know, leftist utopian garbage that they spout, like how Neil is like, hey, why are there so many weapons on Earth? People don't need guns. Well, dude, what about for hunting and shit like that? Right. So that might annoy some people, but overall, I enjoyed this book, and I'm giving it, you know, I was giving it an 8, but because of, you know, there is that Deus Ex Machina bullshit where, you know, Superman just happened to develop this new superpower out of nowhere, right? And they give this half-assed explanation that Batman somehow knows. Also, there was this thing where, like, there was some new villain watching spying on Superman from the shadows, called Oz, whoever that is. Alright, so overall, I like this book, but, you know, I'm giving it like a 7.5 out of 10. If you're a Superman fan or a Geoff Johns fan, you'd probably enjoy this. That's it for this review, guys. Peace. And for our next review, we're going to review Michael Allred's Madman Volume 1. Which looks like an omnibus, but only has 6 issues. So, yeah. Still should be good. Should be